All right, Sean, you have a pretty good start to your rough draft. And what I'm going to do is just kind of give you some suggestions, both technically and then for the content of your rough draft to help you make some changes before you turn in your final copy. So, first, let's look at some of the MLA formatting issues that I see so you can go ahead and fix those right off the bat. First off, I'll be looking for all of the information right here that tells me who wrote this, when it's due, that kind of stuff. So what I'll be looking for is your full name, Sean Hosford, my name. Then I'll be looking for the name of the class, so English Language Arts 3, and then the next line would be the due date. And it's due October 20th, 2014. The way that I'm going to ask you to write that is by putting 20 October 2014. As far as the title goes, I would like for you to think of something just a little bit more creative. Maybe take an aspect of the book to come up with a title, a play on words, something like that, just to give it a little bit of intrigue for the reader. Finally, in the upper right-hand corner, I'll be looking for your last name along with the page number. So it'd be Hosford 1, Hosford 2 for each of the pages that you type on. Another note I'll make is that that should be turned in double spaced. So you want to make sure that you do that before you turn it in. Now, as far as the actual content of the paper, you've got some good things in here. I like that you have used my suggestion as far as the opening line. In his novel Moby Dick, you can actually eliminate this comma and put it here because you want to separate the name of the book from the author. And the name should also be italicized, so it'd be Moby Dick in italics. But anyway, in his novel Moby Dick, Herman Melville demonstrates the dark side of American romanticism. And you're going to want to hit on one of the actual things that the dark side looks at. You're a little bit specific here when you talk about Ahab and Moby Dick, but really you would say dark side of American romanticism, including, and you could say evil and insanity, you could say an interest in the supernatural, the power of darkness, something like that, and put your period there. Go ahead and make this a lowercase letter, and that should finish up your first line. Now, if you want to include this, how Ahab sees Moby Dick as evil, and really Ahab is the evil one, somewhere later, you certainly could. But the aspects of dark romanticism are actually the things that I mentioned just a moment ago. You're then going to go and summarize. The novel's about a man named Ahab, who's the captain of a boat or ship, just choose one of them, named Pequod, hunting for whales. That's perfect. He's not opposed to capturing the whales. So I'm not sure why you used opposed, but you could say Ahab is on a mission to capture one particular whale whose name is Moby Dick. You need to capitalize the D. Even though he's lied to his crew, he uses bribes to try and get them to follow along. Eventually they do, something like that. So the novel is about a man named Ahab who is the captain of the Pequod, a whale hunting ship, and what started off as a typical whaling voyage, or what the crew thought would be a typical whaling voyage, was actually Ahab's personal trip to capture this white whale. Then you could put a period and start off with the next sentence saying something about Ahab is so desperate to catch the whale, he even goes as far as to bribe his crew with gold and hold them in the middle of the ocean until they agree. For your thesis statement, you're pretty close. I would say in this novel, or in his novel, Herman Melville shows how Captain Ahab believes the white whale is evil through his use of imagery, diction, and symbolism. Okay, you want to make sure you keep this all kind of orderly, and that should help you with that. Okay, as far as your first paragraph goes, you don't want to overuse Moby Dick, so be careful that you're not doing that. So I would say Herman Melville uses imagery to help show that Moby Dick is evil in the eyes of Captain Ahab. So just eliminate this first portion. And then go on to say he uses descriptions of the whale that make him seem like a big. I would eliminate mean. Look up a synonym for that that's not subpar language, so that his men will know what to look for and know that he has no force to mess with. When you actually pull these quotes out, you're going to want to make sure that you then add the proper in-text citation. So once you've put your quote, you're then going to add a parenthesis and put the page number it came from and close the parenthesis and then put your period. Then you can go on to finish explaining. This shows that the whale is mean looking. Again, I would think of maybe a synonym for mean, gruesome, beastly, something like that, that helps give that image even more meaning to the reader. Another use of imagery that Herman Melville uses, if, and then you would want to start with a lowercase letter. Suddenly he came to the halt by the bulwarks and inserted his bone leg into the auger hole there, and with one hand grasping a shroud. Again, you need your in-text citation, and then you go on to say this shows. You're kind of using this shows a lot, so make sure you come up with something else, because I see this shows, this shows, this shows. You want to add some sentence variety. Another suggestion I would give you is, rather than doing quote explanation, quote explanation, quote explanation, go through and change it up. Maybe start explaining the quote. So you may say, in an effort to show that Moby Dick took Ahab's leg, the author includes the detail, suddenly he, and then you could put those brackets in to put Ahab in, came to a halt by the bulwarks, inserting his bone leg into the auger hole, and with one hand grasping a shroud. And then you've added some sentence variety, which keeps the reader intrigued. These are the same issues I kind of see throughout the entire thing, so I'm just going to kind of point them out quickly, but make sure that you're, again, putting your in-text citations after your quotes each time, because you want to give credit to the author who actually wrote those words. And again, look at your sentence variety. Make sure you check for capitalization where it needs to be. Remember, when you're referencing the book, it needs to be in italics and hyphenated. When you're referencing the character, it just needs to be capitalized. So that you are using the proper formatting. And then with symbolism, there's a few more things. I actually don't see any direct quotes from the text. You do need to make sure that if you're referencing something like the gold, that you tell me, where do they talk about gold? And I actually do remember that the gold is mentioned on page 286. So you want to include something about the doubloon or the $16 piece or whatever it is that you choose to use. You do need to have 3 examples of in-text or of textual evidence directly quoted and cited in your paper. So make sure you do that in order to complete the assignment with its expectations. As far as your conclusion goes, you got a pretty good start. I see that you did go in and restate your thesis. You're not going to want to put Ahab uses these 3 things because Ahab doesn't. Melville's the author. So you could say Herman Melville uses, and then you would just say not these 3 things, but uses diction, imagery, and symbolism to show how Ahab thinks Moby Dick is evil. Then you continue to go on and explain your thinking. He's blasphemous about killing the whale. Ahab is crazy and the real evil person for trying to kill Moby Dick. He is obsessed with it, and it is bad, but he tries to blame it on all Moby Dick. Leave us with a final thought. What happens to Ahab at the end? And I think I mentioned to you guys in our meeting that, you know, he ended up dying, and so did his whole crew with the exception of Ishmael. So your final thought could be something along those lines. All right, so the final copy is due October 20th. That gives you about 10 days between now and when it's due. If you'd like to come speak to me face-to-face just to get some clarification on this, I would like to talk to you if you have any questions or you're unsure about any of the feedback I've given you. So there will be some other work opening up next week that you'll do as you're making these final touches, but just let me know if you need anything. Have a great weekend. Talk to you soon.